Yeah, extra credit opportunity number 1 today at 3. It's going to be on Zoom. You'll see the details on CAT courses if you'd like to attend. And that is something that can be combined with the other Zoom opportunity to earn the 10 points total in place of attending an event in person, which is the other way to get up to 10 points. No matter what, if you go and you submit a one-page reflection by email to me, you get 5 points, which is the same as a quiz, or you could do really, it gets added to your final essay score. So you'll see, if the final essay is graded out of 40, you could actually earn up to, let's say you ace the final, because I believe in you guys, and you got every extra credit option, you could earn a 60 out of 40 on the final. All points are weighted the same, but that is a good chunk towards getting good grades. But also helps us get butts in the seats for our people who come to campus, which is really helpful for us. Briefly, any announcements for the good of the group on this subject? Check out the chat too. Has anyone had midterms starting yet? God damn, I was hoping someone would say no. It's early, I think, but it feels like this semester we had like the first week 3 times in a row. I don't know why, but it just felt like that. And then now it's like, hey, midterms are next week, and the middle of the semester is 2 weeks later. It's like, okay, calm down. I know I said I wanted to see spring soon. I will save more of that for another day, but I would love to share, even though we are bound to technology today, if you're on Zoom, you have a better experience. I would love to share some moments of brevity that I love, because I think this issue, we know, and we learned a lot this week about the structural components, but I think as someone who shared last time, like I really, whenever I learn about education and equality, find myself reflecting on what is it about my journey that was different, because so much of it could have not turned out as it did by virtue of where I was from and how schools are funded, et cetera, et cetera. I think given the huge majority of UC Merced students who are also themselves first generation, I love to use this week as a chance to kind of bring those experiences to bear. And in some ways, we have to kind of laugh at certain things, because if you really look at it on paper, it is outrageous, the extreme differences in per pupil expenditures, or the differences between one school and another, and how students, obviously children, never get a chance to pick any of this, and it's highly predictive of so much of the rest of their lives. At the same time, pop culture and Key and Peele in particular have made some jokes about what it's like to be in a school that is quote unquote disadvantaged or under-resourced. And so I've got a couple things to share in reference to this week's readings. So let's see here. I'm going to turn.
I'm proud of them. I don't take any credit for where they're at. All they needed was a safe place to be, and they thrived within their skills and their potential that kept being hindered throughout their lives. I keep in touch with them now on Instagram, and they are all doing amazing. And also now, the year after I left that school, 1/3 of the teaching staff was replaced, as was the principal and vice principal.
I every year, I redo the slides, and I'm always shocked at how this is one of the stories that still continues to resonate, because it doesn't matter like where she might be having had this experience. It doesn't matter which classroom, what state. The fact that the things she described could very easily have taken place in so many classrooms and so many school districts, not just with Black, white students, Black, white teachers, but that there is a microcosm of so many of the inequalities that we see in the world kind of come together in the school, both as a matter of its structure and the funding mechanisms, but also the qualitative experience that students are exposed to through their teachers and through the environment. Now, we had left it off with teacher quality. We just saw 2 pretty different examples of the kinds of teachers you might find in any school district, obviously with an emphasis on disadvantaged communities. But the latest research, right, we were talking about how much of a difference really that it matters, because a good teacher Not that it should be their responsibility to make or break all of the things going on in a student's life. They can, though. They can be direct points of intervention. And this, I think, is something, anecdotally we might have experiences with personally, but in research, they have quantified that time and again. Now, this, in today's readings, we look at how, unfortunately, what students are bringing into the classroom or what they're absorbing, what they're experiencing isn't just a reflection of the curriculum or the teachers they have access to, that they're effectively, I always say, the reason I pivoted from studying education inequality was because I found that actually if we could get our Native students to a classroom with a committed teacher that had access to our culturally relevant curriculum, they could flourish quite well. The things that the school had its power to fix and change, it was able to intervene in. The things that the student brought with them, both really, literally, and metaphorically in their backpack, so to speak, when they came home or came to school from home, that was something that schools could only impact to a certain degree. It's much like asking the police to be responsible for addressing things that are mental health concerns when we expect teachers to address things that are a matter of the resources parents have access to, the huge strain put on parents to meet household demands, etc. Now, what they were able to quantify, if we wondered what does this look like on a kind of academic achievement or cognitive level, they have found time and again that living in a severely disadvantaged neighborhood reduces a variety of things. The mechanisms, right, are a little murky, but when you look at things like verbal ability, for example, on average, by their metrics, they're seeing a difference in scores that can actually almost be as if a student had missed a year or more of schooling. And this is because of the things they're experiencing in the home life, right? Or in their home community, home neighborhood. Now, exposure to what we've been describing as concentrated disadvantage actually appears, right, to have these detrimental and long-lasting consequences in terms of cognitive ability, which again, it's the same as missing a whole year of schooling. And I always like to make this point because we talked about this when we did sticky places. We talked about all the layers of a community that could be impacted by these severe lack of resources or huge macroeconomic shifts, et cetera. The layers there are also going to impact schooling, both by virtue of the resources it has access to or the qualitative environment that the students are coming from or going back home to. Now, to be able to impact something detrimentally and quantify it to be equal to missing a year of schooling is quite profound. It's unfortunate that it's a negative impact, but to give you some context, one of the big more successful interventions in academic achievement has been early childhood education, because time and again, it's shown that the earlier the investment made, the more impact there is, or at least the impacts that can be made are relatively cheaper than trying to intervene in, teens and adults, et cetera. I said et cetera a million times today. I'm sorry. I'm clocking it myself. There's a lot of shit going on, clearly. But the Head Start is a huge equalizing force. It actually brings many students up to parity with those who may have been getting that kind of education in their homes or had access to daycare. Now, in those instances where we see a positive impact, even that impact fizzles out by grade 3 or 4. No matter how big it is at the front end, it goes away and it's almost neutral by fifth grade. To have a consistently quantifiable negative loss of a year of schooling is almost hard to articulate because it is a systemic impact. When we think of cognitive ability or the resources one has access to in the job market, it's all a matter sometimes of when we think of a snowball, right? Snowballs get bigger. If you have 1 year less of schooling, that is not just going to stay 1 year less across the life course. It's actually going to accrue and get worse and have even more impacts than it did in real time as you were in school. Now, to try and impact this is very, very difficult, and we have very few examples of it being successfully done. It's not to say it can't be done. And if anything, if we think of the paradigms, both that impact how we fund education, how we think of schooling, but also just America and what we think is appropriate social policy or not, we have the resources, we have the money to intervene, but very rarely have people been willing to put that money and use it accordingly. One small major difference is the Harlem Children's Zone that I always like to bring to your attention. If we don't get to it in the sticky places unit, it's worth a stop now. So we're going to take a look at this.
Harlem is a magical place to me. It is always